think it's time for a bit of a change. I have been in this studio for almost 5 years. Now, when I moved in, my old studio had just gotten flooded because of a toilet hose leak, which is a whole different story altogether. So I had to rush into this space and build it out really fast and immediately get to work. Now, at the time, my primary focus was drum tracks. So I built this room here as the control room and ran all of my audio cabling through the wall into the drum room, which is just down the hall from me. Much like most of you probably watching this video, my studio's in my house and I made do with what I had. So technically this room here is supposed to be a guest room, and the room down the hall is a room that I enclosed when we bought this house and turned into a drum room. The problem is that room actually is way better for audio than this one. This square bedroom is actually really bad for mixing and monitoring audio, whereas that room is sound treated, is a floating room, and is elongated, making it better for mixing and listening. Now, when I first created this studio, I needed that drum room all the time. I was doing drum tracks just about every single day, but I have purposefully slowed that down as I have leaned further into music marketing for my income. So lately, after 5 years being in this same setup, I've been thinking to myself, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe I should move this down the hall into the drum room and set my drums up somewhere else and turn this back into the residential guest room that it was always intended to be. Now, on top of sort of rethinking the space here in the basement of my house, I've also been thinking about what my gear setup might look like if I decide to make that transition. Or I guess I should probably say when I decide to make that transition. As many of you know, I have always sort of leaned into a minimalist philosophy when it comes to my music gear. My idea is that 99.999% of my work, instead of being done between these two rooms, will just be done in that one room and on a rig that I can use inside of my space here, take to a coffee shop, take to a cabin for a weekend. You get the picture. And that brings me to the primary point of this video, getting started with the proper minimalist gear setup for me. In my opinion, outside of the basic things like computer and the DAW you're using, plugins, stuff like that, there are really kind of three primary pieces of gear, hardware gear, that every home studio really kind of needs. An interface, a microphone of some kind, and a good monitoring solution. In this case, headphones. Now, I have a great speaker setup. I love my NS10s. They're not going anywhere, but I do need to upgrade 2 of those 3 categories. So let's start with headphones. Right now, the best pair of headphones I own are Beats. Now, not to knock Beats, but I'm gonna knock Beats. You and I both know Beats are a trash monitoring solution. I've tried monitoring on these, even though I knew what I was getting myself into, and it is a bad experience. So I wanna upgrade my headphone game. Now, in my early research about this, I have been looking a lot at Beyerdynamics headphones. They have a lot of pro-level solutions, and the 2 that I've really been kind of focusing on are the DT990 Pro and then the DT770 Pro. Now, there are 2 different philosophies here. One is open back, which is sort of better for monitoring and listening in a studio environment, as I understand it. And the other is closed back, which is going to be better for recording and also in sort of out of the home solutions. Like if I take my setup to a coffee shop to work, for example, I'm probably going to want a closed back headphone. Now, the rub here is I only want one headphone. So I have to do a little bit more research to figure out which one of these I like, or I have to determine if it's one of these options at all. So ask number 1 of this video. If you have a good headphone that you recommend, that you use and that you love, drop that in the comments and I will look into it. My plan is to do probably a headphone shootout video or a series of headphone shootout videos, depending on what I come up with that I want to try. I want to test different options and then whittle that down to one that I believe is the best headphone option for me. Moving on. Interface. Now, right now I have a Universal Audio Apollo 16 channel interface. Now, I also have this little guy lying around. This is an M Audio Fast Track Pro. And this is a great example of what I ultimately want to have for my primary interface in my studio. But this M Audio doesn't belong to me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has gear lying around like that. Also, it's pretty old and I want to build on top of something that's a little newer and has better technology behind it. I honestly would like to stay inside of the Universal Audio family, but with one caveat. I'm not really a big fan of the onboard software that you have to run to use most of UA's interfaces. Now, before you jump into my comments and tell me, Tom, it's really important, it helps take some of the load off your CPU, I get it. I know exactly what the software is for. I know how to use it. I just don't like it. And I don't really use any of the UA plugins. I prefer the Slate Digital stuff. I use that on everything and I love it. I want to look at Universal Audio's interfaces, but I'm going to bypass the Apollo series and take a look at this Volt series. I've heard really good things about this stuff and I have done some research into all the different options that are available through this series. And I'm thinking this might be where I start to replace this piece of gear, as well as use as the primary workhorse instead of this big 16 channel piece of gear that I've got now. So that brings us to ask number 2 of this video. If you have an interface that you like and you want me to try it out, let me know in the comments of this video. And then that brings me to the final piece of gear in the hat trick of essential outboard gear I think every home studio probably needs, and that is a microphone. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm going to be hard pressed to find a better microphone than the one that I have now. This is a Shure SM7B, and it is by far my favorite microphone. This mic is a workhorse. I've used it on everything from podcasting to vocals to acoustic guitars to drums, kick drum, hi-hat, snare drum, you name it. This microphone has been on it. It is an incredible mic. It is incredibly versatile, and I have yet to find anything that I believe outperforms it across the board like that. That being said, if you have a microphone that is not a Shure SM7B that you believe is equivalent to or better than this microphone that you want me to take a look at, please let me know in the comments section and I will give it a look. So this is where my head's at right now when it comes to gear, studio, and setup. I'm going to start here with this stuff, and eventually we're going to make the move into a brand new room, and I'm going to completely reconfigure this space and build the studio that I kind of really want to have at this point in my life from kind of the ground up. At the end here, if you want to watch a video about me creating this very studio from a really long time ago, then check out this video right here. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.